This shepherd boy had never received any weapons training, but he hunted down 225 Nazi soldiers one by one. His name was Vasily Zaitsev, and this is the true story of how a simple farm boy from the Ural Mountains became the most feared sniper in World War II. Welcome to Vaulted Secret Stories. Before we begin this incredible true story of precision, survival, and the shepherd who changed the course of history, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? And if you believe stories of real heroes need to be remembered, hit that subscribe button. This story will show you how ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things when everything is on the line. Vasily Grigorievich Zaitsev was born on March 23, 1915, in the village of Yelenovka in the Ural Mountains. His childhood was nothing like the military academies that train professional soldiers. There were no shooting ranges, no tactical courses, no weapons instructors. Just endless fields, roaming sheep, and the harsh beauty of the Russian wilderness. Vasily's grandfather, Andrei Zaitsev, was the one who first put a rifle in the boy's hands. But this wasn't military training. It was survival. In the Urals, wolves threatened the livestock, and food had to be hunted to supplement what little the family could grow in the rocky soil. Every shot costs money, his grandfather would say, handling the old hunting rifle like it was made of gold. Every bullet that misses is bread stolen from your family's table. The rifle was ancient, a single-shot weapon that had belonged to Vasily's great-grandfather. If you missed your target, you didn't get a second chance before a wolf disappeared into the forest or a rabbit vanished into its burrow. This wasn't sport hunting, this was precision born from necessity. By age 12, Vasily could hit a running rabbit at 100 meters. By 15, he was providing most of his family's meat, tracking animals through snow and wind with a patience that seemed almost supernatural. His younger brother Nikolai would joke that Vasily could smell where the deer would be tomorrow. But Vasily's skill went beyond just good aim. Growing up in the wilderness had taught him to read the environment like a book. He understood how wind affected a bullet's path, how temperature changed the behavior of gunpowder, how shadows and light could hide or reveal a target. He learned to control his breathing, to slow his heartbeat, to become perfectly still for hours at a time. Most importantly, he learned patience. In the Urals, hurried shots meant empty stomachs. Vasily would wait for the perfect moment, sometimes lying motionless in the snow for 6 hours, just for one clean shot that would feed his family for a week. The other children in his village played games and ran around like normal kids. Vasily spent his days alone in the forest, developing an almost mystical connection with his rifle. He knew exactly how the old weapon would behave in any weather, at any distance, at any angle. The rifle became an extension of his body. When Vasily turned 22, he was drafted into the Soviet Navy and stationed with the Pacific Fleet. Even there, his reputation as a marksman preceded him. During training exercises, instructors would gather to watch him shoot, amazed by his natural ability with weapons he'd never seen before. That the Pacific Fleet was relatively quiet in 1937, Vasily spent for years in naval service, learning discipline and military protocol, but never seeing real combat. He was a hunter without prey, a sniper without a war. That changed on June 22, 1941, when Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa and invaded the Soviet Union. By September 1942, the German Sixth Army had reached the outskirts of Stalingrad. This wasn't just another city, it was named after Stalin himself, and losing it would be a devastating psychological blow to Soviet morale. Both sides understood that Stalingrad would be where the Eastern Front was won or lost. The battle was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Street by street, building by building fighting that turned the city into a hellscape of rubble and smoke. German forces controlled 90% of the city, but Soviet defenders clung to scattered positions along the Volga River, fighting with desperate courage. Vasily arrived in Stalingrad on September 22, 1942, as part of the 1047th Rifle Regiment. He was no longer a shepherd boy, he was Senior Petty Officer Zaitsev, armed with a standard-issue Mosin Nagant rifle and thrown into the most brutal urban warfare in human history. His first day in Stalingrad nearly ended his story before it began. German snipers controlled most of the high ground, picking off Soviet soldiers the moment they showed themselves. Vasily's unit was trying to cross a street when the soldier next to him suddenly dropped, blood spreading across the rubble. Then another fell, and another. Sniper! Someone screamed, and the remaining soldiers pressed themselves against whatever cover they could find. Vasily studied the buildings across the street, his hunter's eyes scanning for the source of death. Most soldiers would have seen only broken windows and shadows. But Vasily saw details others missed: a slight movement in a third-floor window, a barely visible glint of metal, the angle of a shadow that didn't match the sun's position. Without asking permission, Vasily raised his rifle and fired a single shot. The German sniper's rifle clattered to the street below, followed by the body of its owner. "How did you even see him?" asked Lieutenant Danilov, the political officer assigned to Vasily's unit. "He was hiding in the wrong shadow," Vasily replied simply. That evening, Danilov wrote in his report, "Today I witnessed something extraordinary. A shepherd from the Urals killed a German sniper with one shot at approximately 300 meters, in conditions where most soldiers couldn't even locate the target." Word of Vasily's shot spread quickly through the Soviet positions. In a battle where survival was measured in hours, not days, finding someone who could fight back against the German snipers was like discovering a miracle. Within a week, Vasily had killed 17 German soldiers, each with a single, precisely placed shot. He wasn't just shooting, he was hunting, using all the skills his grandfather had taught him in the Ural forests. But his real test was about to begin. By October 1942, Vasily had become something of a legend among Soviet troops in Stalingrad. Soldiers would point him out to each other. "That's the one who can kill Germans from a kilometer away." His daily kill count was posted on walls throughout the Soviet positions, both to boost morale and to strike fear into German hearts. The psychological effect was enormous. German soldiers, who had been confident in their superiority and advanced equipment, suddenly found themselves hunted by an invisible enemy who seemed to strike from nowhere. They called him der Russische Geist, the Russian ghost. Vasily's hunting ground was the ruins of central Stalingrad, a moonscape of destroyed buildings, twisted metal, and endless hiding places. He would position himself before dawn, sometimes not moving for 8 hours, waiting for the perfect shot. His patience, learned during those childhood hunts in the Urals, gave him an almost supernatural advantage. His favorite hunting spot was the ruins of a department store, where he could observe German positions through a small hole in the rubble. From there, he could cover 3 different streets and a major intersection. German soldiers learned to avoid that area entirely, but Vasily would simply move to a different position and continue his deadly work. The rifle that made him famous was a standard Mosin Nagant 91/30, the same weapon carried by millions of Soviet soldiers. But in Vasily's hands, it became something extraordinary. He knew exactly how his specific rifle behaved, how the trigger pulled, how the barrel heated up after multiple shots, how the sight alignment changed in different light conditions. Lieutenant Danilov, the political officer, recognized the propaganda value of Vasily's success. Here was a simple farm bow, representing the Soviet people, defeating professionally trained German soldiers with superior equipment. Danilov made sure Vasily's story was featured in army newspapers and radio broadcasts. "Tell me about your most difficult shot," Danilov asked one evening as they shared a meal of black bread and watery soup. Vasily thought for a moment. "Yesterday, I saw a German officer teaching 3 soldiers how to move between buildings safely. They were about 800 meters away, moving in short bursts from cover to cover. The officer was explaining something, gesturing with his hands, and I waited until he raised his arm to point toward our positions. When he held still for 3 seconds, I took the shot. The bullet traveled for almost 2 seconds before hitting him. The other soldiers never even heard the shot, they just saw their instructor fall." Danilov stared at him. "You can calculate bullet travel time in your head." "It's not calculation," Vasily replied, "it's feeling. Like knowing when a deer will step into a clearing." By November 1942, Vasily's confirmed kill count had reached 149. Each kill was verified by witnesses and recorded officially. The Soviet army needed heroes, and they wanted to make sure Vasily's story was absolutely accurate. But German high command was growing increasingly frustrated with their losses to this mysterious Soviet sniper. Reports were coming in from multiple units about a single marksman who seemed to be everywhere at once, picking off officers and experienced soldiers with surgical precision. That's when they decided to send someone special to hunt the hunter. Major Heinz König was everything Vasily was not. Where Vasily was a self-taught farmer, König was a graduate of the German army's finest sniper school in Zossen. Where Vasily used a standard infantry rifle, König carried a custom Mauser K9 8K with a high-quality Zeiss scope. Where Vasily had learned to shoot by hunting animals, König had spent years perfecting his craft on human targets across Europe. König arrived in Stalingrad in early November 1942 with a specific mission: find and eliminate the Soviet sniper who was demoralizing German forces. He brought with him a reputation as the deadliest marksman in the Wehrmacht, with over 400 confirmed kills across Poland, France, and the Eastern Front. The German command didn't just want Vasily dead, they wanted his death to be public, dramatic, and devastating to Soviet morale. König was ordered not just to kill the Russian ghost, but to make sure everyone knew he had done it. König's first move was to study his prey. He spent 3 days observing Soviet positions, trying to determine Vasily's patterns and preferred hunting spots. Unlike the typical German approach of overwhelming firepower, König understood that this would be a battle of patience and precision. Meanwhile, Vasily knew someone was hunting him. His hunter's instincts, honed over decades in the wilderness, told him he was being watched. German soldiers in his area had become more careful, more coordinated. Someone was teaching them how to move and hide more effectively. The first direct confrontation came on November 8. Vasily was positioned in the ruins of a chemical factory, observing a German communications post about 600 meters away. He had been watching for 2 hours when he noticed something unusual, a reflection, just for a split second. From a building to his left, someone with a scope was watching him. Instead of shooting immediately, Vasily did something that demonstrated the difference between a trained soldier and the true hunter. He pretended not to notice. He continued observing the communications post as if nothing had changed, but every nerve in his body was focused on that building to his left. After 20 minutes of careful observation, Vasily spotted his stalker, a figure in German camouflage, positioned in a third-floor window about 400 meters away. The scope glint had been brief, but it revealed the hunter's position. Vasily made his decision. Instead of engaging directly, he would set a trap. He placed his helmet on a stick and slowly raised it above his cover, making it look like he was preparing to change positions. The response was immediate. A rifle shot echoed across the ruins, and his helmet flew backward with a bullet hole through the center. The German sniper had taken the bait, revealing his exact position with his muzzle flash. Vasily aimed carefully at the window where the shot had originated and fired once. Through his scope, he saw the German figure jerk backward and disappear from view. But when Vasily moved to a new position and observed the building through binoculars, he realized his target was gone. No body, no blood, no signs of a hit. The German sniper had escaped, which meant either Vasily had missed something that rarely happened or his opponent was even more skilled, and yet expected. That night, Lieutenant Danilov found a note stuck to their position with a German bayonet. Written in Russian, it said, "The hunt has begun, HK." The duel between Vasily Zaitsev and Major König had officially started. For the next 5 days, Vasily and König engaged in a deadly game of chess played across the ruins of Stalingrad. Each man tried to anticipate the other's moves, set traps, and gain the psychological advantage. König's strategy was to force Vasily into making mistakes. He would position himself in locations where Vasily might expect to find German soldiers, then wait for the Soviet sniper to reveal himself. On November 10th, this approach nearly worked. Vasily was stalking what appeared to be a German radio operator in a bombed-out building. He spent for hours getting into the perfect position, calculating wind speed and distance. But as he prepared to take the shot, something felt wrong. The target was too obvious, too exposed, too easy. Instead of firing, Vasily remained motionless and continued observing. After another hour, he spotted movement in a building behind his supposed target, the glint of a scope, the slight shift of fabric. The radio operator was a decode. König was positioned to shoot anyone who tried to kill the bait. Vasily slowly backed away from his position without taking a shot. That evening, he found another note: "Patience is good. Fear is better. HK." But König had revealed something important with his trap, his general location and his tactical approach. Vasily began to understand his opponent's psychology. This was a trained soldier who relied on equipment and formal techniques, not the instinctive hunting skills that Vasily had developed over a lifetime. On November 12th, Vasily decided to turn the tables. He created his own bait, a Soviet helmet position to look like a soldier observing German positions. But instead of waiting for König to shoot at the decoy, Vasily positioned himself where he could observe König's most likely shooting positions. At 2:47 p.m., König took the bait. His shot destroyed Vasily's helmet decoy, and for just a moment, his scope caught the afternoon sunlight. Vasily fired immediately. Through his own scope, he saw König's rifle fall from the window, followed by what appeared to be a body. But Vasily's hunting experience had taught him to be cautious. Wounded animals were often the most dangerous. He waited. For 6 hours, Vasily maintained his position, watching the window where König had fallen. No movement, no sounds, no signs of life. German soldiers in the area began to behave as if their sniper was dead. They moved more carelessly, exposed themselves more freely. As darkness fell, Vasily carefully approached the building where König had been positioned. He found blood on the floor, König's rifle, which had been damaged by Vasily's shot, and military papers identifying the German major, but no body. König had been wounded, but he had escaped in the confusion of the building's collapse after Vasily's shot. The duel was not over. The next morning, Vasily found a final note, written in blood on a piece of concrete. "Well played, Russian. But I am not dead yet. Tomorrow we finish this, HK." November 15, 1942. Dawn gray and cold over the ruins of Stalingrad. Both snipers knew this would be their last encounter. The psychological pressure of their 5-day duel had attracted too much attention from both armies, and the broader battle for the city was reaching its climax. Vasily chose his position carefully, a partially collapsed grain elevator that gave him excellent visibility across a wide area of the city. He arrived before dawn and settled in for what he knew would be a long wait. König, wounded but still deadly, had chosen the bell tower of a destroyed church about 800 meters away. It was a risky position, highly visible, but with excellent fields of fire. The message was clear. König was tired of hiding and ready for a direct confrontation. For 3 hours, neither sniper moved. Both men understood that the first to show himself would likely be the first to die. This wasn't about quick reflexes anymore. It was about patience, discipline, and the ability to wait longer than a human mind normally could. At 11:30 a.m., the stalemate was broken by chance. A piece of debris, loosened by wine, fell from König's position in the bell tower. It was barely audible, just a small scraping sound, but it was enough. Vasily's hunter's ears, trained by years of listening for the smallest sounds in the forest, detected the noise and pinpointed its source. Through his scope, Vasily could just make out a shadow in the bell tower that didn't match the architecture. König was there, probably watching him through his own scope, but Vasily couldn't see him clearly enough for a clean shot. Then Vasily did something that demonstrated why he had become such a successful hunter. He used his environment to his advantage. The sun was directly behind Vasily's position, which meant König would be looking into glare when trying to spot him. Vasily slowly adjusted his position until the sun's reflection off his scope lens would shine directly toward the bell tower. For just a moment, Vasily allowed sunlight to reflect off his scope, creating a brief flash that would be visible to König. To the German sniper, it would look like a mistake, a Soviet marksman accidentally giving away his position. König took the bait. The German's shot rang out across the ruins, aimed at where he thought Vasily was positioned. But Vasily had moved 3 feet to the left immediately after creating the scope flash. König's bullet struck the concrete exactly where Vasily had been seconds before. Now König's position was revealed by his muzzle flash, and he would need several seconds to reload and reposition. Vasily aimed carefully at the bell tower, exhaling slowly and squeezing the trigger with the same gentle pressure he had learned as a child hunting rabbits in the Urals. The shot traveled for 1.8 seconds before finding its target. Through his scope, Vasily saw König's body slump forward in the bell tower, then fall from view. This time, there was no doubt, Major Heinz König was dead. The death of Major König marked a turning point, not just for Vasily's personal story, but for the entire Battle of Stalingrad. News of the Soviet shepherd who had defeated Germany's finest sniper spread throughout both armies, providing a massive morale boost to Soviet forces and demoralizing German troops. Vasily continued fighting in Stalingrad until the German surrender in February 1943. By the end of the battle, his confirmed kill count had reached 225, each one verified by witnesses and recorded in official records. But on January 31, 1943, Vasily's war nearly ended forever. While hunting German positions near the Mamayev kurgan, a German mortar round exploded close to Vasily's position. Shrapnel damaged his eyes, leaving him temporarily blind and ending his career as a sniper. For months, doctors weren't sure if his vision would ever return. The irony was devastating. The man whose eyes had made him the most feared marksman in the world might never see clearly again. Soviet propaganda made the most of Vasily's story even during his recovery. His image appeared on posters throughout the Soviet Union, and his sniper techniques were taught to thousands of other marksmen. The simple farm boy from the Urals had become a symbol of Soviet resistance. Fortunately, after several surgeries, Vasily's vision was restored. He returned to combat, but as a trainer rather than an active sniper, teaching other soldiers the hunting skills that had made him legendary. After the war, Vasily returned to civilian life, eventually becoming an engineer and living quietly in Kiev. He rarely spoke about his wartime experiences, preferring to let others tell his story. The man who had been one of the most famous soldiers in the Soviet Union chose to live as an ordinary citizen. Vasily Zaitsev died on December 15, 1991, just 10 days before the Soviet Union itself ceased to exist. He was buried in Volgograd, the city formerly known as Stalingrad, where he had written his name in history with bullets and blood. Today, Vasily Zaitsev is remembered as one of the greatest military marksmen in history. His techniques are still taught in sniper schools around the world, and his story has inspired countless books, films, and documentaries. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about Vasily's story is what it represents: the idea that extraordinary achievements can come from the most ordinary beginnings. A shepherd boy with no formal military training became more effective than soldiers with years of professional education. Natural talent, combined with patience and discipline learned in the wilderness, proved more valuable than expensive equipment and advanced tactics. The rifle that made Vasily famous, that standard issue Mosin Nagant, is now displayed in the Museum of the Defense of Stalingrad. Visitors can see the weapon that changed the course of history in the hands of a farm boy who learned to shoot by hunting food for his family. Vasily's story also demonstrates the psychological power of individual excellence in warfare. One man with exceptional skills didn't just kill enemy soldiers, he changed the morale of entire armies. German forces in Stalingrad became afraid to expose themselves, while Soviet troops gained confidence knowing that someone was fighting back effectively against the Nazi war machine. In the end, Vasily Zaitsev proved that heroes don't always come from military academies or aristocratic families. Sometimes they come from the mountains, carrying hunting rifles and ancient wisdom passed down from grandfather to grandson. The shepherd boy who had never received formal weapons training ended up teaching the world what precision really means. His legacy reminds us that in the darkest moments of human history, ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they have the courage to stand up and fight back. So I ask you, have you ever met someone who achieved greatness through simple dedication and natural talent? Someone who proved that formal training isn't always the path to excellence? Share their story in the comments. Tell us about the ordinary people who became extraordinary through patience, practice, and determination. And if this story of real heroism moved you, subscribe to Vaulted Secret Stories. We bring you the true stories of ordinary people who changed history, stories that deserve to be remembered and honored. Because sometimes the greatest warriors aren't born in palaces or trained in academies. Sometimes they're born in simple villages, learn their skills in the wilderness, and carry the wisdom of their grandfathers into battle. Vasily Zaitsev was one of those warriors, and his story proves that with enough patience, precision, and courage, one person really can change the world. Thanks for watching, and remember, never underestimate the power of someone who learned their skills a hard way.